It's fugitive Australian journalist Shane Young from the website kangaroocourtofaustralia.com. Now, opposition leader Peter Dutton has clearly been lying about what he knew and when in relation to the Brittany Higgins-Bruce Lemon rape allegation. He's trying to look over their routine, trying to blame Labor and say, oh, look, they've been covering up certain elements of it. Well, that may or may not be true, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the Liberal Party spent 2 years trying to cover up the alleged rape of Brittany Higgins. And Peter Dutton was clearly up to his neck in it as Home Affairs Minister. The federal police reported to him. And some fresh evidence has come to hand from 2 police officers during the course of the ACT inquiry into police corruption, specifically Scott Muller and Deputy Commissioner Neil Gagan, who's also the ACT Chief Police Officer. And I'm going to read you out a couple paragraphs from their witness statements for the inquiry, and then have a look at that in comparison to what Peter Dutton has told the media. And it doesn't add up. Peter Dutton is clearly lying. Now, the alleged rape happened on March 23, 2019, and Peter Dutton claims he did not know about the rape until 11th of February 2021. Well, that's not believable. Now, as I read out the content of these 2 witness statements, there's 2 key questions that rise. It's not believable that the AFP did not tell Peter Dutton Brittany Higgins had already done 2 interviews that were about to be published when they told him on the 11th of February. And also, number 2, he claims a sensitive investigation board that looks into these matters advised they should tell him on the 11th of February 2021. Well, why didn't they tell him on April 2019? Of course they would have. Anyhow, I'll read you out what Detective Superintendent Scott Muller said in his witness statement at page 16, paragraph 79. On or about the 1st of April 2019, I became aware of the investigation as part of my regular briefings by Detective Station Sergeant Matthews. And as such, it was included in the DCPO weekly briefing, etc. Then at paragraph 81, he says, well, the investigation stopped around that time, not long after that, because Brittany Higgins withdrew a complaint. She didn't want to continue with it because of her work commitments, but she's also said she was pressured by the government not to continue with the complaint. Anyhow, at paragraph 81, Scott Muller says in his witness statement, I became aware the investigation had recommenced on Monday, the 8th of February 2021, and received a briefing document from Detective Inspector Borman, authored by Detective Sergeant Gareth Saunders on that day. The significant aspects of that briefing for me was that Ms Higgins was not willing to provide a formal statement at that time and wanted to delay providing us the statement till after the news article by journalist Samantha Maiden had been published, and that she had already participated in an interview with Lisa Wilkinson, which was not due to be aired on the project until Monday, the 15th of February 2021. Now, Deputy Commissioner Neil Gagan said on page 64 at paragraph 70.4, I had interactions with the AFP Commission in relation to the investigation in 2021. And I'll just skip down to the key part. In 2021, I provided verbal briefings to the AFP Commission about the progress of the investigation around the time that I became aware of issues arising or milestones reached in the investigation. Specifically, to the best of my recollection, I provided briefings to the AFP Commissioner about at least the following: that Ms Higgins wished to provide a statement to ACT Policing about the complaint, and that Ms Higgins would appear on the project about the complaint. So he had pre-warned Commissioner Reece Kershaw that Brittany Higgins was about to appear on the project. Now, it's worth noting what Deputy Commissioner Neil Gagan, as ACT Chief Police Officer, he also briefed the ACT Minister for Police and Emergency Service. They've got their own government. And this is what he says at page 67, paragraph 70.15. I recall that I first provided a verbal briefing to the Minister about the investigation in February 2021 because I was made aware that Ms Higgins intended to appear on the project. I believe that I briefed the Minister on the facts that Ms Higgins had contacted the AFP requesting to reinstate the investigation, that Ms Higgins wanted to provide a statement to the AFP, and that Ms Higgins intended to appear on the project prior to providing the statement to the AFP. Now, the reason I read that out to you is because it's important. It was a crisis issue, and Deputy Commissioner Neil Gagan knew it. So I was even letting the ACT Minister know, hey, shit's about to hit the fan. She's about to go public on the project. Now, Mr Gagan, or Deputy Commissioner Gagan, probably forgot about the report also going in the news.com website, the written interview by Samantha Maiden. Now let's see what Peter Dutton has said publicly about the issue and what he knew and when. This is an article by Samantha Maiden, or just part of an article. What did Peter Dutton know? On the same day that Katie Gallagher appears to have found out, then Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton had confirmed he was briefed by the Australian Federal Police. Now, that's the 11th of February 2021. And he goes on to say the reason was that under sensitive investigation protocols, the AFP decided to inform him after Ms Higgins re-engaged with police on February 5 before the story broke. Now, she had obviously told them on the 5th of February or contacted the police. On the 8th of February, from Scott Muller's statement, he found out. And on the 11th of February, Peter Dutton was informed, and he had to be informed, not just that the complaint had been re-engaged, the rape allegation, but also that it was about to hit the fan in the media. And that's very important because, of course, he told Prime Minister Scott Morrison. The only reason he wouldn't have told Prime Minister Scott Morrison is if he was trying to stitch him up, but there wouldn't have been much value on that. So, of course, he told Scott Morrison on February the 11th. That's important because Scott Morrison claimed that he didn't know until the day it hit the media on February 15th. So that's Peter Dutton lying. And it goes on to say this report. Peter Dutton told Parliament in 2021 that he initially kept this information confidential when he was informed by the AFP Commissioner Reece Kershaw on February 11th. Now, Peter Dutton has gone on to say, well, I'll keep on reading, sorry. It was only when the media approached the Prime Minister's office on February 12th, a day later, that Mr Dutton said he was asked his Chief of Staff to tell the PMO that the AFP had been in contact. He later explained on the Today Show's Carl Stefanovic how it unfolded. And I'll read this out to you. Brittany re-engaged with Australian Federal Police on or about the 5th of February, and I was informed by the Australian Federal Police Commissioner on the 11th of February. Mr Dutton said, I have a special responsibility, I suppose, unlike other ministers. I have a responsibility for the Australian Federal Police, so I receive briefings on a regular basis, particularly sensitive matters, by the Australian Federal Police Commissioner. And the way in which the AFP deal with that is they have a sensitive investigation board that has a look at the matters. And if they deem an investigation to be sensitive, which they did after Brittany re-engaged on the 5th of February, then they met on the 11th of February, and the Police Commissioner then is obliged to inform me, which he did on the 11th of February. Well, if it's a sensitive matter in 2021, it would have been a sensitive matter back in 2019. Why didn't they inform him then? Of course they did. They informed him in April 2019. He's a compulsive liar. Now, it goes on to say, this article, now I have, as I say, a responsibility as Minister responsible for the Australian Federal Police not to disclose that information. I take that responsibility very seriously. I didn't have a briefing about the full detail of the case, but I did have a briefing about the process that the AFP intended to undertake. Well, he had to have been informed that Brittany Higgins had already done 2 interviews that were about to be published. And he had to have told the Prime Minister, and the AFP had to have told him, because that was a key issue. Not that Brittany Higgins had re-engaged with the complaint. That wasn't the key issue at that point in time, the urgent issue, I mean. The urgent issue was that it was about to hit the fan in the media, and everyone had to be notified. And it goes on to say, that was on the 11th of February, and I've had a couple of briefings since then over the course of the last fortnight. But now we're at the stage where the police want to conduct the investigation. They can do that because an official complaint has been made, and that's what should take place. In relation to my interaction with the Prime Minister, I deemed it not to be appropriate to provide information to the Prime Minister on the 11th. There were media inquiries that came into the government on the 12th of February, the following day, and as a courtesy, we provided information to the Prime Minister's office at that point. Well, where it makes no sense, the police knew. Scott Muller said he knew on the 8th of February that Brittany Higgins had done 2 interviews that were about to be published, one with News Corp and one with The Project. So they had to have told Peter Dutton on the 11th when they briefed him that, hey, it's about to hit the fan, 2 interviews about to be published. So why didn't he tell him on the 11th? Why did he have to wait? Why did Peter Dutton not tell the Prime Minister on the 11th? Why did he have to wait till the next day when media inquiries come in? That's bullshit. He already knew it was about to hit the fan in the media on the 11th. He had to have done. The police knew. They were worried about it. So much worried they even briefed the ACT police minister. And the reason they briefed the ACT police minister is because they do the local policing there. Deputy Commissioner Neil Gagan is also the Chief Police Officer for the ACT. So they're not informing the ACT Minister for Police on every rape allegation, only the ones that about to hit the fan in the media. And the point is, again, that was they regarded it as a very urgent matter, a matter that was politically sensitive. They needed to let the bosses know, hey, this is about to hit the media. And I bet good money they told him before the 11th of February, but even so, Peter Dutton said he was informed on the 11th. He had to be informed about the fact that it was about to hit the media. And he should have told the Prime Minister that day, not wait until the next day, as he claims, when media inquiries started coming in. Anyhow, Peter Dutton goes on to say, so I don't disclose the information provided to me by the Australian Federal Police, particularly where there are operational matters. And that was the decision, I think quite appropriately, that I took on the 11th of February. And that's the situation. So we're back to the two big lies I mentioned at the beginning. It's not believable AFP didn't tell Peter Dutton Brittany Higgins had already done 2 interviews on the 11th when he claimed he was briefed by the AFP. And that being the case, he should have told the Prime Minister then and there. He claimed he didn't tell him because it was sensitive and he's not meant to tell anyone. And he waited the next day when the media started inquiring. Well, that's bullshit because we know the media were already about to hit the fan in the media. So that we know that's a story by Peter Dutton's a total lie. And also, he says it was a sensitive investigation board that decided to inform him in February 2021. Well, it was a sensitive investigation in 2021. It was still a sensitive investigation in 2019, so they would have told him then. One last thing is Peter Dutton was Minister for Home Affairs and finished in that portfolio on March 30, 2021. Only a few weeks after this started hitting the fan. I wonder if he jumped ship and said, I'm in too deep, I'm getting out of here. So what Labor Senator Katie Gallagher did or didn't know and whether she misled Parliament is neither here nor there, because it was Peter Dutton, former Prime Minister Scott Morrison and Linda Reynolds and half the front bench who misled the Australian public for a couple of years trying to conceal an alleged rape. And that's the key issue. And Peter Dutton is trying to use old diversion tactics. And I think there'll be a lot of people in the Liberal Party and National Party just thinking, Jesus Christ, what's Peter Dutton up to? Digging a huge hole for himself because he might have managed to divert attention away from himself and his former ministers for a couple of days or maybe even a couple of weeks, but it's going to go full circle very quickly and the attention and focus is going to be back on them and what they did or didn't know. The story you just heard, you wouldn't have heard anywhere else. Kangaroo Court of Australia's independent media. I publish a website, YouTube channel, Facebook page and Twitter account, and I'm reliant on donations to keep on publishing. So please support my Patreon account. I'm currently sitting on 257 patrons donating $1,519 a month. You can donate any amount, $3, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30, $40, $50, whatever suits your budget. It all helps out. And I really need to get to at least 500 patrons to become financially viable. So please support and please share this video on Facebook and Twitter, etc. Thank you for your time and have a good day.